thank you, Lord, for everything you have done.
Ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ bá dé, a dúpẹ́ o Jésù fún bí tẹ́ mú wa lọ. Ẹ ṣé o.
Ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀, ibi tẹ́ mú wa lọ.
Hallelujah. Ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ bá dé,
a dúpẹ́ o Jésù fún bí tẹ́ mú wa lọ. Ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ ti bẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹ ṣé ibi tẹ́ bá dé, a dúpẹ́ o Jésù ibi tẹ́ mú wa lọ.
I really want to thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I really want to thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. Àwa máa dúpẹ́.
Orí àná, orí òní, orí ọ̀la lójoojúmọ́.
Àwa máa dúpẹ́.
Orí àná, orí òní, orí ọ̀la lójoojúmọ́.
I really want to thank you, Jesus.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you. I really want to thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
Àwa máa dúpẹ́.
Orí àná, orí òní, orí ọ̀la lójoojúmọ́.
Àwa máa dúpẹ́.
Orí àná, orí òní, orí ọ̀la lójoojúmọ́.
You are the miracle working God. Your name is
Yahweh.
Sing Yahweh.
Your name is Yahweh. You are the miracle working God. Your name is Yahweh. Worthy is the Lamb of God. Let us pray. Almighty God, the one who was, who is, and who is to come, ever glorious God, the Father of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ,
We thank you, we give you praise. We give you honor and adoration for what you have done, for what you are doing, and for what you are still going to do in our lives. Most especially for your protection and sustenance, even in this trying moment. We thank you, O Lord, because you ever remain our God. We worship your holy name. Lord, accept our thanks in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Lord, we cannot thank you enough for our going out and our coming in, for all your promises that come to pass over our lives. You said no evil shall befall us. We thank you because we are going up and down. You are the one that is saving and keeping us. Thank you for all this, O Lord. Baba, accept our thanks in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. We come unto your presence, O Lord, even unto the throne of mercy. We ask in your infinite mercy that you look unto us from the throne of mercy and forgive us all our sins, the sin that we've committed in word, thought, and deed. Lord, have mercy and forgive us in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Lord Jesus Christ, we want you to deliver us even from the bondage of sin. Lord, do so in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. We have no power to deliver ourselves, but we want you to look unto us, most especially for the blood that Jesus Christ shed on the cross of Calvary, to cleanse us from all our iniquity. Lord, do so in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. The Spirit of the living God, we invoke you right away. We welcome you afresh, even to this presence, Lord. We pray that you have your way from beginning of this service even to the end of every person that will take one part or the other. Lord, fill us with your Spirit in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Lord, we don't want to come here in vain and go back the same. We want to conceive you. We want to feel you. We want to receive your touch in another dimension, in the way that we have never touched before. Baba, touch us today in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. As your word will go forth to all news and training throughout the world, O Lord, we pray that the word will be the word of deliverance in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. Will be the word of protection in the mighty name of Jesus Christ. We pray that that word, O Lord, will shield us and will tabernacle us. Baba, let it be so in Jesus' name. We thank you, O Lord, because you've answered our prayer. May your name be glorified forever. For we pray in Jesus' name. The Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from all evil. For thy is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen. Praise the Lord. Praise the mighty Jesus. We continue as we sing from Yoruba hymn book hymn 674 in Yoruba, in English hymn 837. 674 in Yoruba, 837 in English. ti ń kọ́ gbọ́ngbọ́ngbọ́ báwọn ewé ti ń kọ́ Hosanna 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 sí ọba wa. Shall we be seated? The Old Testament reading is taken from the book Psalm 118. We read from verse 1 to 2 and continue from verse 19. Ẹ̀kọ́ kíkà látinú májẹ̀mú láéláé. Ó ní nínú orin Dáfídì orí kejìdínlọ́gọ́fà. A ó ka ìkíní sí ìkejì. A ó tẹ̀síwájú kíkà rẹ̀ láti ẹsẹ̀ ìkọkàndínlógún. Psalm 118 verses 1 to 2, and the reading continue verse 19. Hear the word of God. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endure forever. Let Israel say, his love endures forever. Open for me the gates of the righteous. I will enter and give thanks to the Lord. This is the day, this is the gate of the Lord, through which the righteous may enter. I will give you thanks, for you answer me. You have become my salvation. The stone which the builder rejected has become the cornerstone. The Lord has done this, and is marvelous in our sight. This is the day the Lord has done it, and his very day. Let us rejoice today and be glad. Lord, save us. Lord, grant us success. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. From the house of the Lord we bless you. The Lord is God, and he has made his light shine on us, which brought in hands, done in the first start process, the horn of the altar. You are my God, and I will trust you. You are my God, and I will exalt you. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, and his love endureth forever. This is the word of God.
Matthew chapter 21, beginning from verse 1. Matthew chapter 21, beginning from verse 1. Ìhìnrere chati ọwọ́ Jésù Kristi kọ Matthew orí kọkànlélógún bẹ̀rẹ̀ láti ẹsẹ̀ kìíní. And when they drew near to Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the mountain of Olives, when Jesus sent 2 disciples, saying to them, Go into the village opposite you, and immediately you will find an ass tied and a cloth with hair. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone say anything to you, you shall say, The Lord has need of them, and he will send them immediately. This took place to fulfill what was opened by the prophet, saying, Tell the daughter of Zion, Behold, your king is coming to you,
humble, and mounted on an ass and on a cloth. The fall of an ass. The disciples went and did as Jesus has directed them. They brought the ass and the cloth and put their garment on them, and he sat thereon. Most of the crowd spread their garment on the road, and others cut branches from the tree and spread them on the road. And the crowd that went before him and that followed him shouted, Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. And when he entered Jerusalem, all the city stirred, saying, Who is this? And the crowd said, This is a prophet, Jesus from Nazareth of Galilee. This is the gospel of Christ. The hymn 103 in Yoruba, English 192.
Let us pray.
Ẹ jẹ́ kí a gbàdúrà.
Heavenly Father, we want to appreciate you once again for a time like this, a time to seek your face, a time to praise and worship you, a time to listen to your voice. Lord, at this time we invoke Holy Spirit to come down and interpret your word into our hearts, so that this time that we are remembering and celebrating will not go just like that, but it has a meaningful time in our mind and in our life. Speak to us, O Lord.
Amen.
In the name of God the Father,
Amen.
God the Son,
Amen.
and God the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
We thank God once again for this another opportunity.
Adúpẹ́ lọ́wọ́ Ọlọ́run lẹ́ẹ̀kan sí fún oore ọ̀fẹ́ bàǹtàbàǹtà yìí.
This time last year,
Nírú àkókò yìí lọ́dún tó kọjá.
we gathered together to celebrate this important Sunday in the life of Christendom.
A kórajọ papọ̀ láti ṣe àyájọ́ irú ọjọ́ ìní, ọjọ́ tó ṣe pàtàkì nínú ìran Kristẹni.
Even around the towns, we have processions by Christians.
Ní tilẹ̀ jẹ́ pé lọ́dún tó kọjá láàrin àdúgbò káàkiri ni àwọn èèyàn ń jó tìmọ̀tọ̀pẹ́.
The denominations, they went out to celebrate this type of service today.
Oríṣiríṣi ìjọ lẹ́lẹ́kajẹ̀ka ni wọ́n lọ káàkiri láti ṣe àyájọ́ irú ọjọ́ ìní.
To propagate the triumphant entry of our Lord Jesus Christ into Jerusalem.
Láti kó kìkì ìwọ ẹ̀yẹ tí Jésù Kristi tó wọ inú Jerúsálẹ́mù.
Because today we start what we call Holy Week.
Nítorí pé lónìí ni ọ̀sẹ̀ mímọ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀.
The last journey of our Lord Jesus Christ here on earth.
Ọ̀sẹ̀ tó jẹ́ pé ó gbẹ̀yìn ìrìn àjò Olúwa wa Jésù Kristi lókè èèpẹ̀.
The last week in which God conquered Satan.
Ọ̀sẹ̀ tó jẹ́ wípé ó fún Kristi ní ìṣẹ́gun lórí Sátánì.
The last week in which the salvation of humankind accomplished.
Ọ̀sẹ̀ tó jẹ́ wípé ìgbàlà gbogbo ìran ènìyàn di pípé.
Today,
lónìí,
I want to let us know another thing about the triumphant entry.
Mo fẹ́ ká tún mọ ohun mìíràn tó yàtọ̀ gédéǹgbé nípa bí Jésù ṣe fi tẹ̀yẹtẹ̀yẹ wọnú Jerúsálẹ́mù.
If you have ever worked in political campaign,
tí o bá tiẹ̀ ti darapọ̀ mọ́ ìkéde gbangba ti àwọn olóṣèlú.
especially being on the team for a winning candidate or a party.
Tàbí tó bá tiẹ̀ wà ní ìhà àwọn tí ó ń borí.
As the results are being announced,
bí a bá sì ti kéde àbájáde ètò ìbò.
there is excitement and hope.
Inú àwọn èèyàn yóò máa dùn, ìrètí wọn ó padà dé.
Hope for a better future.
Wípé ìrètí wà fún ọjọ́ ọ̀la tó dára.
Hope for a positive change.
Wípé ìrètí wà fún àyípadà rere.
Dreams of future opportunities.
Nítorí pé àlá tá a ti ní fún ọjọ́ iwájú yóò máa bẹ̀rẹ̀ sí ní wá sí ìmúṣẹ.
Because their party is on the top gear.
Nítorí pé àsíá ẹgbẹ́ wọn òun ló lékè téńté.
And they have many programs to carry it out.
Tí wọ́n sì ní ètò lọ́lọ́kan òjọ̀kan tí wọ́n ti là kalẹ̀
Those
láti
people who
lè
have
fẹsẹ̀ dé.
worked for the success of that election, they know that they are going to get something.
Gbogbo àwọn tí ó ṣiṣẹ́ tó kópa kan tàbí òmíràn fún àbáyọrí ètò ìdìbò náà wọ́n ti mọ̀ wípé àwọn náà ó rí nǹkan táwọn ó jẹ́ nínú rẹ̀.
We started today with the liturgy of the palm.
Bẹ́ẹ̀ gẹ́lẹ́ náà la bẹ̀rẹ̀ àyájọ́ ọjọ́ ìní gẹ́gẹ́ bí àlàkalẹ̀ àti ìgbàgbọ́ onígbàgbọ́ nípa ti ìmọ̀ ọ̀pẹ.
There is lots of excitement and hope.
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ìdùnnú àti ìrètí ló wà nínú ọkàn àwọn onígbàgbọ́.
Shouts of Hosanna.
Kíké hosannas.
Waving palm branches.
Bí a sì ti ń ju ìmọ̀ wa.
Spreading clothes on the dusty road.
Ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ló tiẹ̀ ń tẹ́ aṣọ wọn sílẹ̀.
There is hope.
Wípé ìrètí wà.
Hope for a king.
Ìrètí fún ọba náà.
Especially for the Romans, that they are expecting a king that will deliver them.
Ní pàtàkì jùlọ fún àwọn ará Róòmù tí wọ́n ń retí Mèsáyà tí ó gbà wọ́n sílẹ̀.
They want total freedom.
Wọ́n fẹ́ ìtúsílẹ̀ nítòótọ́.
So immediately they heard about Christ coming.
bí wọ́n sì ti gbọ́ nípa bíbọ̀ ti Jésù Kristi.
Their own interpretation was the king that will lead them to the world.
ìtumọ̀ lọ́kàn tiwọn ni wípé ọba tó ń bọ̀ yìí òun ni yóò mú wọn la inú ogun ayé já.
My dear people of God,
ará nínú Olúwa.
today
lónìí
we cannot go out.
a lè jáde.
We cannot come together.
a lè kórajọ papọ̀.
We don't have time to process.
a ní àkókò láti máa jó káàkiri.
To make this special Sunday known to the people.
láti jẹ́ kí gbogbo ènìyàn kó mọ̀ pàtàkì irú àjájọ́ ọjọ́ ìní.
But I want to assure you,
ṣùgbọ́n mo fẹ́ wá fi dá wa lójú o.
whether we gather or we don't have time to gather,
yálà akórajọ papọ̀ ni tàbí ànírú àǹfààní bí èyí.
whether we have opportunity to worship together or not,
bẹ́ẹ̀ a ní àǹfààní láti kórajọ papọ̀ tàbí ànírú àǹfààní bẹ́ẹ̀.
that doesn't mean anything to our God.
kò dá iṣẹ́ Ọlọ́run dúró.
The procession or crowd is not what God is looking
kò ní
after.
ṣe oye ogunlọ́gọ̀ èrò tí ó ń lọ lọ́wọ̀ọ̀wọ́.
But your personal relationship with your God.
ṣùgbọ́n ipa tí ìwọ gan kó nípa bíbá Ọlọ́run rìn fúnra rẹ.
Today we celebrate Palm Sunday.
lónìí à ń ṣe àyájọ́ ọjọ́ ìsinmi
A
ọ̀pẹ.
really wonderful day of celebration.
ọjọ́ tó jẹ́ pé ó yẹ kí a máa rántí nígbà gbogbo ni.
But we also recognize Passion Sunday today.
lónìí náà la sì tún rántí ọjọ́ ìjìyà Jésù bákan náà.
So we have this comfort as we enter into Holy Week.
a sì ní ìdùnnú yìí àti ìtura yìí bí a ti ń wọnú ọ̀sẹ̀ mímọ́ lọ.
Today a journey begins.
lónìí ìrìn àjò kan náà tún bẹ̀rẹ̀.
Today
lónìí
another journey begins.
ìrìn àjò mìíràn tún bẹ̀rẹ̀.
And I want everybody to know that the triumphant entry of our Lord Jesus Christ starts a new beginning, a new journey.
mo fẹ́ kí gbogbo wa ká mọ̀ wípé fífi ẹ̀yẹ tí Jésù fi ẹ̀yẹ wọnú Jerúsálẹ́mù ó fi yé ẹnìkọ̀ọ̀kan wa wípé ìrìn àjò ọ̀tun ó tún bẹ̀rẹ̀ nínú ìgbésí ayé onígbàgbọ́.
The journey of Jesus from the back of blocks of Galilee to the big smoke of Jerusalem.
ìrìn àjò Jésù Kristi láti Gálílì wá lọ sí inú Jerúsálẹ́mù.
The journey from synagogue to temple.
ìrìn àjò láti inú sínágọ́gù lọ sínú pẹpẹ.
The journey from the Last Supper to the heavenly banquet.
ìrìn àjò láti inú oúnjẹ alẹ́ ìkẹyìn àti oúnjẹ ti àwọn àyànfẹ́ lọ́run.
The journey from Pilate residence to King Herod's palace.
ìrìn àjò láti inú ilé Pílátù lọ sí ààfin Hẹ́rọ́dù.
The journey from Praetorium to Golgotha.
ìrìn àjò láti ibi tí Jésù ti jìyà títí dé ibi tí a ti kàn án mọ́ àgbélébùú.
The journey from the cross to the tomb.
ìrìn àjò láti orí àgbélébùú títí dé ibojì.
The journey from the empty tomb to the incredulous disciples.
ìrìn àjò láti inú ibojì tó ṣófo títí lọ sí pípe iṣẹ́ ìránṣẹ́ fún àwọn ọmọ ẹ̀yìn.
The journey from Jerusalem to Emmaus.
ìrìn àjò láti Jerúsálẹ́mù lọ sí Emausi.
The journey from creation to redemption.
ìrìn àjò láti ìṣẹ̀dá títí di ìràpadà.
The journey from despair to hope.
ìrìn àjò láti ìkọ̀sílẹ̀ wá sí mímú wá sílé.
The journey from death to eternal life and salvation in God.
ìrìn àjò láti inú ikú wá sínú ìyè àti ìgbàlà nínú Ọlọ́run.
God, Jesus Christ have done all these things for us.
Jésù Kristi ó ti ṣe gbogbo nǹkan wọ̀nyí fún wa.
So that our journey as a Christian will be very easy to all of us.
láti lè jẹ́ ká mọ̀ wípé ìrìn àjò wa gẹ́gẹ́ bí Kristẹni yóò rọrùn fún wa.
Because today many people they are crying, they are shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. They are giving Jesus praise and adoration.
ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ lónìí ni wọ́n ń ké gbé Hosanna Hosanna tí wọ́n ń yin Jésù lógo tí wọ́n sì ń gbóríyìn fún.
But among crowd.
ṣùgbọ́n láàárín ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ènìyàn yìí.
They don't have personal conviction about Jesus Christ.
wọ́n ní ìbáṣepọ̀ tó dánmọ́rán láàárín àwọn àti Jésù Kristi.
The reality of Palm Sunday is that in the wake of Jesus' triumphant entry into Jerusalem, he had already set his eyes to the cross.
ìrìn àjò Jésù Kristi ní tẹ̀yẹtẹ̀yẹ wọnú Jerúsálẹ́mù ó ti fi hàn wá gbangba wípé Jésù ti múra tán ó sì ti gbé ojú rẹ̀ lé sí ọ̀gangan àgbélébùú.
He could have saved himself.
ó ní àǹfààní láti gbára rẹ̀ là.
He could have avoided that fate.
ó ní agbára láti yí àyànmọ́ náà padà.
He could have stayed away.
ó ní oore ọ̀fẹ́ láti fà sẹ́yìn.
But because of me and you,
ṣùgbọ́n nítorí tèmi tìrẹ.
because of the salvation of humankind,
nítorí ìgbàlà ìran ènìyàn.
he decided to finish the work.
ó pinnu láti parí iṣẹ́ náà.
Because that is not which he came to do, to do away with the death.
nítorí pé kì í ṣe ohun tó wá láti wá ṣe nìyẹn ni pé kó farapamọ́ láti má kú lórí àgbélébùú.
He pursued his purpose all the way to its natural consequence.
ó rí dájú wípé ó tẹ̀lé ní sísẹ̀ntẹ̀lé ohun gbogbo tí bàbá ti là kalẹ̀ gẹ́gẹ́ bí iṣẹ́ rẹ̀ tí yóò ṣe ní ayé.
He was arrested.
a mú.
He was judged.
a dá a lẹ́jọ́.
He was executed.
a sì tì í sínú
Even among his own society.
láàárín àwọn ènìyàn rẹ̀ pàápàá.
This is what I refer to as radical obedience.
ohun tí èmi mọ̀ ní gbangba nìyí tí mo sì pè ní ìtẹríba nítòótọ́.
And radical humility.
àní ìbọ̀wọ̀ tó ga jùlọ.
Philippians 2:8 says.
ìwé Fílípù orí ìkejì ẹsẹ̀ ìkẹjọ sọ
He
wípé.
humbled himself.
ó ní ó tẹrí ara rẹ̀ bá.
In obedience to God.
nípa gbígbọ́ràn sí àṣẹ Ọlọ́run.
Died a criminal death.
ó sì
on the cross.
kú ikú ni àní ikú àgbélébùú.
Because of this world.
nítorí ayé yìí.
Because of what we are passing through now.
nítorí ohun tí à ń là kọjá nísinsìnyí.
Because of the present situation.
nítorí ohun tó wà ní àgbáyé lọ́wọ́.
God has condemned his only son.
Ọlọ́run fúnra rẹ̀ ó ti jọ̀wọ́ ọmọ bíbí rẹ̀ nìkan ṣoṣo.
In order to save us.
láti rí dájú pé
In order to deliver us.
láti di ẹni
In order to
ìtúsílẹ̀.
save us.
láti di ẹni ìgbàlà.
It is easy to join many people in celebration when a crowd is excited.
ó rọrùn láti darapọ̀ mọ́ ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ènìyàn ní pàtàkì jùlọ nígbà tí a bá ń ṣe àjọyọ̀.
Following the crowd is often easier than following Jesus Christ.
láti tẹ̀lé ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ènìyàn ó rọrùn ju láti tẹ̀lé Jésù gangan
What
lọ.
many Christians are following today is their principle, their preacher, their geo. They don't follow Christ.
ohun tí ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ àwọn onígbàgbọ́ ń tẹ̀lé lónìí òun náà ní ìlàkalẹ̀ ètò ìjọ adarí ìjọ àbí kí ni oníwàásù ń ṣe.
But the scripture says,
ṣùgbọ́n kí ni Jésù Kristi sọ.
looking unto God,
ó ní wíwo Ọlọ́run.
looking unto Jesus,
wíwo Jésù Kristi.
the author and finisher of our faith.
olùpilẹ̀ṣẹ̀ àti aláṣepé ìgbàgbọ́ wa.
By looking unto Jesus
nípa wíwo Jésù Kristi.
is the only way that you can get everything.
òun náà ní ọ̀nà kan ṣoṣo tí a lè gbà láti ní ohun gbogbo.
The scripture says,
ọ̀rọ̀ Ọlọ́run wípé
if my people
àní tí àwọn ènìyàn mi
that are called by my name,
tí à ń pe orúkọ mi
if they
mọ́
can humble themselves,
tí wọ́n bá lè rẹ ara wọn sílẹ̀
if they can confess and forsake their sins,
tí wọ́n bá lè jẹ́wọ́ kí wọ́n sì kọ̀ ẹ̀ṣẹ̀
if they
wọn
can call on me,
tí wọ́n sì lè pè mí
I will hear from heaven
èmi yóò gbọ́ láti òkè
and
ọ̀run wá
heal their land.
èmi yóò sì wo ilẹ̀ wọn sàn.
That is the promises that God is giving us, not only yesterday, not only today, but throughout our journey.
èyí ni ìlérí Ọlọ́run tí Ọlọ́run sì fi ìdí rẹ̀ múlẹ̀ nínú ayé àwọn ọmọ rẹ̀ kì í ṣe lánàá o kì í ṣe lónìí nìkan ṣùgbọ́n títí ayé àìnípẹ̀kun.
Those promises are for us till the end of our lives.
àní àwọn ìlérí yìí ó wà fún wa títí ìgbẹ̀yìn ọjọ́ ayé wa.
My dear people of God,
ará nínú Olúwa.
I don't know what you are passing through
èmi ò
right
mọ
now.
ohun tí ẹnìkọ̀ọ̀kan wa ń là kọjá ní àkókò yìí o.
I want to be become another thing or body in your heart.
tó ti jẹ́ pé ó fẹ́ di ohun mìíràn tàbí àjàgà nínú ọkàn
I
wa.
want us to look at Methodist in book 320 in English and 220 in Yoruba.
mo fẹ́ ká wo ìwé orin ìjọ elétò nínú Yorùbá 220.
Oh, it says, "Art thou weary? Art thou languid? Art thou sore distressed like this period? Come to me, saith one, I'm coming, be at rest."
wá sọ́dọ̀ mi aláàárẹ̀, àárẹ̀ mú ọ, ayé sún ọ, làálàá pọ̀ fún ọ. Jésù ní wá sí ọ̀dọ̀ mi kó o sì sinmi.
Christ is calling us for a rest.
Jésù Kristi ń pè wá fún ìsinmi.
Verse 2 says,
ẹsẹ̀ ìkejì wípé
"And he mark to lead me to him."
àmì wo lèmi ò fi mọ̀?
The person that I'm proclaiming to you this day.
ẹni tí èmi ń sọ fún ọ nípa rẹ̀ lónìí.
Any sign to lead you to him.
àmì wo ni yóò mú ọ lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ rẹ̀?
He be my God.
òun náà ní ìṣọ́ mi.
In his feet are hands and wounds paint.
ní àtẹ́lẹwọ́ àní ní ẹsẹ̀ rẹ̀ àmì ìṣówà.
And in his side.
ní ẹ̀gbẹ́ rẹ̀ bákan náà.
And he diadem as a monarch.
tí a sì fi adé dé bí ọba.
That person I'm talking about.
ẹni tí mò ń sọ nípa rẹ̀ yìí.
Any crown on him.
adé tí ó wà lórí rẹ̀.
Any crown on him.
irúfẹ́ adé yòówù tó wà lórí rẹ̀.
Any mitre on him.
irúfẹ́ fìlà tó wà lórí rẹ̀.
That can lead me to him.
èyí tó lè mú mi lọ sí ọ̀dọ̀ rẹ̀.
That is brown adore.
òun náà ní ó ṣe iyebíye.
Yeah, a crown is in very swarthy but of thorns.
lóòótọ́ adé wà lórí rẹ̀ ṣùgbọ́n ti ẹ̀gún ni.
If I find him and follow him,
bí mo bá rí bí mo ti tẹ̀lé.
what is going to be my gain?
kí ni yóò jẹ́ èrè mi?
What is going to be my dividend?
kí ni yóò jẹ́ èrè mi?
Many are sorrow.
ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ló wà nínú ìyà. ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ló wà nínú ìbànújẹ́.
and tears.
ọ̀pọ̀lọpọ̀ ló tiẹ̀ ń tiraka.
All these things can make us weary.
gbogbo nǹkan wọ̀nyí ló lè fa ìrẹ̀wẹ̀sì bá ọkàn wa.
But at last,
ṣùgbọ́n ní ìkẹyìn.
if I still hold closely to him,
bí mo bá tẹ̀lé títí ayé mi.
no matter the condition,
láìka ti ipò tàbí ohunkóhun tó lè
no
jẹ́ sí.
matter the situation,
láìka ti ohun tí ayé lè
no
sọ.
matter what we are passing through now,
láìka ti ohun tí à ń là kọjá.
if I still hold closely to him,
tí mo bá sì ń tẹ̀lé nítàntàn.
what is going to be my gain at last?
kí ni yóò jẹ́ èrè mi ní ìkẹyìn?
My dear people of God,
ará nínú Olúwa.
sorrow, vanquished.
ọ̀fọ̀ àti ìyà.
Sorrow, vanquished.
ìbànújẹ́ fò lọ.
Corona, vanquished.
àní àìsàn kòrónà ti dópin.
Labour ended.
ìtiraka wá dópin.
Jordan passed.
òkun Jọ́dánì sì pínyà.
Dear people of God,
ará nínú Olúwa.
Jesus is calling us
Jésù Kristi ń pè wá.
that a journey before us,
wípé ìrìn àjò tó wà níwájú
he
wa.
has passed through those journeys
òun náà ti la àwọn ìrìn àjò yìí kọjá.
so that he will know how to help us to pass through.
kó bàa lè mọ̀ kó sì tọ́ wa sọ́nà bí àwa náà yóò ṣe là á kọjá.
As you are surrendering yourself to him anew today,
bí o sì ti ń jọ̀wọ́ ara rẹ fún lótìtọ́ lọ́tún lónìí.
I pray
mo sì gbà ládùúrà
that good Lord
wípé Ọlọ́run fúnra rẹ̀
will accept you.
yóò gbà ọ́.
good Lord,
ọlọ́run tòótọ́
will open heaven unto you
yóò ṣí ọ̀run nítorí tirẹ̀
and bless you abundantly.
yóò sì bùkún ọ nítòótọ́.
In the name of God the Father,
orúkọ ti bàbá
God the Son,
àti ní ti ọmọ
and God the Holy Spirit.
àti ní ti ẹ̀mí mímọ́. Amen.
People of God, let us pray. Those who are listening to us at home, let us bow our head and let us pray, because this is a time we need prayer. Almighty and everlasting God, we thank you. Lord, we give praises and adoration to you for your adequate protection, for taking care of us. At this point in time in which millions of people have lost their life through coronavirus, of this pandemic disease, Lord, we know definitely that our protection comes from you. Because you've promised us that because we clad for you in love, you are going to protect us. Lord, we need adequate protection from the celestial realm. Father, do so in Jesus' name. Almighty God, do so in Jesus' name. You've promised us that when we call upon you, you are going to answer us. At this point in time in which the entire world is facing ups and downs and challenges of life, Lord, we pray that your protection will be upon us in Jesus' name. Amen. We will not die of coronavirus. Amen. We will not die of coronavirus. Amen. Lord, you've promised us that you will be with us. You promise us that when we call your name, you stand by us. On your word we stand. Father, be with us in Jesus' name. Amen. Thousands will fall on their right side, and 10,000 will fall, but it will not come near us, but we will only see with the recompense of the Lord. Father, may your words be fulfilled in our lives in Jesus' name. Amen. World powers are saying next week millions of people will die. But that is human saying. Because the God we are serving have promised us that when we believe in him, he is going to deliver us. Father, do so in Jesus' name. Amen. Father, do so in Jesus' name. Amen. Lord, increase our faith. Amen. Lord, increase our faith. Olúwa fi ara wa lé ọ lọ́wọ́. Olúwa dáàbò rẹ bò wá. Olódùmarè dáàbò rẹ bò wá. Oní búburú kan kì yóò ṣubú lù wá, bẹ́ẹ̀ ni àrùn kárùn kan kì yóò wọlé tọ̀ wá. Bó bá rí bẹ́ẹ̀, Olúwa àṣẹ wa Ọlọ́run Olódùmarè ní. Olódùmarè wá pa wá mọ́. Olódùmarè wá pa wá mọ́. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ó dúró lórí Kristi. Bàbá, a sì mọ̀ pé òní já wa ní tàmá. Ọlọ́run Olódùmarè, Olúwa wá dì wá mú. Mo fi gbogbo ẹ̀yin tẹ́ ń wò wá nínú ilé mímọ́ ilé Olúwa lọ́wọ́. Ikú ò ní wọlé tọ̀ yín, àrùn ò ní wọlé tọ̀ yín, ìdààmú ò ní wọlé tọ̀ yín, ìjìgbẹ̀sán ò ní jà wá. Lórúkọ Jésù, gbogbo wa á jọ pàdé nínú ìjọ yìí, á jọ ké hallelujah. Ògo ni fún Ọlọ́run Olódùmarè. Jésù agbára wa. At this point in time, we have to thank God for all our listeners who are watching us at home. The Lord will be with you. Amen. The Lord will protect you. Amen. The Lord will strengthen you. Amen. No coronal infection will come into your house. Amen. Adequate protection of the Lord will be upon you. Amen. We will gather together once again and rejoice in the name of the Lord. Amen. At this point in time, I also have to thank the Bishop of the Dowsett, Right Reverend Bego, who the Lord will be with you. Amen. The Lord will protect you. Amen. When you lift up your hands, God of Bethel will protect you. Amen. When you lift up your voice to pray, your prayer will be acceptable before the Lord. And I commit you into the hands of the Lord. The Lord will enlarge your coast. Amen. Thank all of you watching us, the choir, and all of us. God bless you all.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for everything we have done in your presence today. As we continue rejoicing in our different homes, let your presence abide with us. Let your power continue to guide us. Unto God, gracious mercy, I commit you all. The Lord bless you. The Lord keep you. The Lord make his face to shine on you and be gracious unto you. And the blessing of God Almighty, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit rest and abide with you and your people wherever they may be this day and forevermore.